Hello, my fellow friends and YouTubers. This is Kurt. Welcome back to the Kurt Splash channel here on YouTube. Right now we're down in my basement arcade, and I've had a number of people ask me what Visual Pinball is and how does it actually work. Visual Pinball is the program that I use to run all my pinball tables and everything that you'll see on my video. You know, all the cabinets and things that you see me running on my Visual Pinball cabinet use Visual Pinball to make them work. Good example is games like Big Bang Bar and Street Fighter 2. I'm going to try to upload today, just to name a few of the ones that I have, and the many hundreds of tables that have been made out there. And Visual Pinball is a program that's been used to make all those that you see on my channel. I want to mention, if you want to go ahead and click that subscribe button, feel free to do so that we can keep up with all my current videos. If you like what you see, click that like button is down below as well. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave those in the comments section down below. Now, this video that I'm making is going to give you a few basics about how Visual Pinball works. Now, if you want a much more detailed look into Visual Pinball, you can also go to the YouTube channel, look at Visual Pinball, and they'll tell you many things about how to build how you build these tables from scratch using Visual Pinball. And also, if you go to the VP forums page, that also explained a lot of tutorials and things on how you get started making Visual Pinball tables of your own. Now, this video is just going to show you a few basics about what Visual Pinball is and how it works. I'll just give you a few basic ideas of exactly what's involved in using Visual Pinball. Okay? And as always, I want to thank you for watching the channel. And I'm going to go ahead and begin the video. And I'm just going to show you some basic things about Visual Pinball and basically how it works to kind of give you an idea how it gets started. Now, the one thing to keep in mind when you're watching this video, when you see the fully made tables that I have on my channel, these are tables that are made by I honestly have to say, absolutely wonderful craftsmen. Making a Visual Pinball table is more of a craft. It involves hours and hours and hours of being able to do layouts and things like that, scripting and various things to make these tables actually work. So keep in mind that a Visual Pinball table like you see on my channel, these are tables that have taken hours and hours, even in some cases, even years to make, that you actually see on my channel. But this is just going to show you basically what Visual Pinball looks and how you start making a table on your own. Okay, let's go ahead and begin. Okay, we're now back. I now have the tripod and everything set up now to show you the actual backglass screen that we're going to be using to show you how the Visual Pinball front end works. Now, the thing to keep in mind is that if you want to know more in-depth detail about how Visual Pinball works, such as, more detailed videos and things, you can go to channels on YouTube to check those out. And you can also go to the VP forums as well. Now, this is just going to show you some basic things about how Visual Pinball works and give you an idea of how you go about setting it up. Okay? Now, when you install Visual Pinball, you're going to have an icon that looks just like this. It's going to say V Pinball. Okay? Now, I'm going to go ahead and load this up. Now, keep in mind, there are different versions of Visual Pinball, different upgrades and things too. What we're focusing on this time is, I believe the version that I have, it's one of the older versions that works really well with my pinballs. Now, it's going to vary. It's going to vary from setup to setup on exactly which one that you use. Now, the one that I have, that I'm using right now, I'm using Visual Pinball 9.21, 9.2.1. That's the version that I'm currently using right now. That's to show you in this demonstration. Okay, let me go ahead now. What you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and once you install Visual Pinball, you're going to go ahead and you're going to click this Visual Pinball button here, and this is going to bring up a template that's going to show what Visual Pinball looks like. Now, this is the actual layout that he has for Visual Pinball. Now, what you're going to notice is when you start out a table, when I say open, okay, all the tables that I have currently in my pinball machine are listed right here. For example, like we got like Algar, we got Attack from Mars, and if you go down here, you're going to see there all these different tables are listed. Medusa and various things. Now this is a program that runs all these. Lightning, Monster Bash, okay? All these different tables. Every pinball that I have uses this program to run these things. Waterworld, Vector, Twister, Twilight Zone, just to name a few. Now, what's going to happen is if you have a table that's already created and you want to load a table, you're going to basically download these tables from the VP forum site. They're going to be under Visual Pinball tables. You're going to download the table, and then you have to get the ROMs for the table to run off the VP forum site as well. Once you have the ROMs and then you have the table and everything in there, then you're going to basically be able to go ahead and run the table using Visual Pinball. Now, like I said, on how to get everything set up and everything to run the tables, there's actually a lot of things on the forum that will show you that, and also on YouTube as well. I'm just giving you a basic idea of what it looks like. So this is going to be your table list. When you want to open up the table that you created, you're going to give it a name, and then your tables are going to be listed here. Now, these are all tables that I've downloaded that I have on my cabinet that you see on my channel. Okay. Now, to start a basic cabinet out, what you're going to do is you're going to go to File on the left-hand side, and you're going to say New. And what that's going to, this is basically what you start out with when you have Visual Pinball. This is basically how basic it is. You normally have a set of flippers in the bottom. You have a couple of little slingshots on the sides, okay? And then you're going to have the top of the playfield. Now, this is the area where you create everything that you see on Visual Pinball. As you can see, it's basically just a blank canvas as it starts. This is what everybody starts out with when they do Visual Pinball. So you can imagine how much work it actually takes to build a table, basically placing everything on here. Now, you're probably wondering, how do I go about placing walls and things on here? Well, on the left-hand side of the screen, you're going to see icons. There's going to be one for wall. I'm going to read them off to you. There's wall, gate, ramp, flipper, plunger, bumper, spinner, timer, trigger, light, kicker, target, decals, lights, flashers, and then also there's one that says primitive on it. Now, what's going to happen is you're also going to see on the top there's going to be one for Backglasses. Now you're going to notice that there's one for scripting. All these different things have purposes that are used to make a table. I'm just going to go ahead and show you a basic thing what it would use. If you want to install a wall on the table, what you would do is you would go to this wall icon and you would click wall, and then when you move it over to the table, this is actually going to show, when you hit your left mouse button, this is actually going to place the wall that's on the table. Now, what you would do from this point is you would basically edit the wall, basically how high you want it, how low you want it, how wide you want it. Basically, you can move it around on the table using the mouse that I'm showing here based on where you want to put it, okay? And then if you want to take it off, then you would want to hit delete, and that removes it. Now, if you want a gate, same thing with gate. You would click gate, you would put it on here like this, and what that does is that would install a gate. Now, you're going to notice the type of gate you install will vary. Do you want it to go one way, two ways, or do you want it to? Do you want the ball to be able to go through one way and not the other, or be able to pass through it both directions? That's one of the options that you have when you use Visual Pinball that you're going to be able to do when you build a table. Is you can determine that. You also can rotate this as well, depending on the direction that you want on your table. Okay. Now the next thing you're going to have is ramps. Now, if you go to ramp, what ramp is going to do is that's going to download the ramp icon for you, as you can see here. And then as you can see, I can manipulate the ramps. Do I want it shorter? Do I want it longer? How do I want it? That's going to be used for ramps. Do you want them clear? Do you want them colored? All these things are going to be done from the ramp indicator that I have here. And then you also can move it throughout the table. So as you can see, Visual Pinball is basically just a template that you use to build a pinball that you want to design. Now, keep in mind that if you have a real pinball that you want to use, for example, like fishtails with ramps and things, then you would basically just move this in orientation to where the ramps would be on the real pinball. But this is where the craftsmanship and expertise comes in. The people that design these tables take months and even years to design these tables, and they have years and years of experience. And my hat's off to all the people that create these tables. I consider them absolute magicians of their craft, the fact that they're able to build these tables that I enjoy. But this basically is where it starts. Okay, so that's going to be the ramps. Okay. Now the next one you're going to have is going to be flippers. When you click the flipper icon, this is going to put a flipper on here. Now you can move the flipper left or right. You move left or right, and then also this is going to show you how much of direction the flipper is going to actually have. And then you're also going to have qualities of the flipper. As you can see here, you're going to have different things here that open up to assign different things. Like you can assign properties and various things to the flipper. Okay, and then of course you can have multiple flippers. And what's going to happen is, from what I understand, when you design a flipper, you can also program the buttons that control it. As you can see, Visual Pinball already has two flippers already on the bottom, as you can see. But then this added a third one, and then if you want to add another one, then you would just do the same thing. You would say flipper, and then you could add another one, depending how many flippers you want to have on your pinball. Okay. Now the next thing you're going to have plunger. Now what plunger's going to do is plunger's going to install a plunger that looks just like this. Okay. Now the plunger is used to actually launch the ball into play. Now you're going to notice that when you install plungers too, you're also going to have a number of qualities that come up for the plungers, such as how you want to program the plunger. Do you want it to hit hard, or do you want it to hit soft? How sensitive do you want it? When you get the table loaded in, you're going to have a bunch of options that are going to come up over here. That's going to tell you how to go ahead and do all these different adjustments for the plunger speed and everything as well. But like I was saying, this is just a basic video showing you how you place different items on the table. Okay. Now the next thing you're going to have is going to be bumpers. Now when you say bumper, this actually puts a bumper on the table. Same thing with the bumpers. You move it left and right wherever you want to have the bumper based on the table that you're making. And what's going to happen is you can also adjust with these bumpers. You can also adjust how powerful things you want them to be as well as the type and everything too. There are actual templates on the internet that you can have that have different things like bumper caps and various things you can download for different pinball machines that you might want to use. So if you're going for an old school look or a new school look, you could actually use the templates that they have on the internet to actually download to put decals on your flippers to make it look just like the real pinball that you want to play. Okay, so that's how the bumper button works. Okay, now the next one we're going to have a spinner button. This is going to be a spinner. Now what this is when you have pinball machines that have spinners, this is going to determine the type of spinner that you have. And also you can once you get this set up, you also can set the point values and things as well on the spinner as well, once you get that set up. Okay. Okay, now the next one we're going to have timers. Okay, now what timers are going to do is timers can be used if you want. I don't know all the specifics on the timers because I honestly have not made a table with visual pinball except for some very basic ones. And I've done that. I don't even have the table saved anymore because it's been a long time. But like I said, if you go online, you can learn about how the timers and things work as well on the internet. Okay, or on YouTube or the VP forums. Okay. Now the next thing we're going to have is going to be triggers. Now triggers going to be things that are going to be used like if the ball rolls over onto the table, when it pushes a button down, that's going to be a trigger. That's going to allow you to do things like rollovers and things like that. That's what these little trigger buttons are for. And the same thing with these. You can download different trigger types and things off the internet as well, depending on the type of table that you're using. Okay. Now the next thing is going to be lights. And if you say lights, what this is going to do is this is going to determine the lighting that you want to have on the table. If you want to, for example, like when you want to have lighting and things underneath, this is going to be what are going to be used for the lights, and you can move it to different spots throughout the table, and you also can set the color that you want the light as well using the tools that are in this program. Okay. Now the next thing we're going to focus on is we're going to focus on kicker. Now what kicker's going to be is kicker's going to be used if you want to have an option where it will actually kick the ball out. That's what kicker's going to be used for. When you have things on the table that are sunk into the play field that kick the ball out like holes that are on the table, that's what this kicker is for. This is designed if you want to make a hole in the table that the ball will drop into, and then this will kick it out. Now you also can adjust the speed and things that the kicker has, and the strength also using the tools that they have in the Visual Pinball program. Okay. Now the next you're going to have is target. And if I say target, what's going to happen with target is it's going to open up a target icon. Same thing here. You can move it throughout the table wherever you want it. Now there's going to be things that you can adjust. For example, how many targets do you want in a bank? Do you want them in order and sequence and things like that? That's what target's going to be. You're going to be able to determine how many targets you want to have and the width and thing as well. That's what's going to be used with targets. Okay. Now the next thing's going to be decals. Okay. When you say decal, what decal's going to do is if you have things that you want to put on your table, for example, you have artwork and things like that. From what I understand, now keep in mind, I haven't actually done this myself with decals. You can actually take decals that you've downloaded, pictures from videos and things, you know, pinballs and things, and actually use them as templates on your table to actually lay out decals to make it look like the real arcade game using pictures that they've taken of the play fields. Now, keep in mind, a lot of the play fields that are used that you can actually get what's called a stripped down play field, which is a play field that's stripped of all of its components and everything and just has the artwork. And what they do is they actually take digital pictures of those and they use those with this decal tool, and then they can actually basically create the play field graphics and everything using this tool here along with the pictures that you have. Now keep in mind that it can take hours and hours of work in order to be able to do this, to get these decals just right. But what you would do is you would basically move that where you want it on the play field, and then there's little squares on here as well that help you guide it in place where you want it based on the orientation that you need it at. Okay, so that's how decals will work. Okay, now you're going to notice on here there's a couple things like text box and EM reel that this doesn't actually that I'm not actually using for this tool here. Now, like when you say lights, when you put lights on here, this is going to be lights that you have on the actual table. For example, like if you want to light up an area, like if you want to have lights under the slingshots, then you would move this underneath the slingshot, and that would create light underneath the slingshots, just like they have on a real pinball. That's what you would use for your light button. And there's also, you can adjust the intensity, and you can also adjust how long it stays on as well, using tools in the Visual Pinball program that I'm showing you. Okay. Now this one I'm not exactly sure. It's called primitive. I don't exactly know how that one actually works. So I'm not going to actually focus on that one because I'm not sure how it works. This just gives you some basic things on how everything works. Now, when you have flashers, okay, when you put flashers on, anytime you see tables that have strobe lights and things on, they use things called flashers. And that's what this here is for. You also can adjust how long the flasher stays on and how bright it is and the intensity using the tools that are in this program. Okay? All right, so that's basically how you set everything up on here. Now, you're also going to notice that there's another box on here for backglass. Now, a backglass is, if you want to go ahead and you want to create a backglass on Visual Pinball, you can do that as well. And this is the Backlash Creator. And you're going to notice it has timers, lights, decals, and reels and lights. Various things also that can be used with the backglasses as well. When people design pinball machines, a lot of times, you can, and when you go to the VP forums, if you notice, you're going to see things called backglasses. Backglasses. Backglasses are also created using Visual Pinball, and Visual Pinball works with them. Basically, it ties a backglass and the playfield together all in one unit, even though they're designed on different areas. As you can see, that's for backglass, and that's your basic table. This is your table that you design, and then you have your backglass. Okay. Now, another option you have on top is you're going to have a thing called script. Now, I'm going to show you what the script text box looks like. Now, this is where things can get very complicated. Okay. Now, this is your actual script box. Now, what you're going to do in your script box. Now, remember, I don't know a whole lot about scripting and everything, but I can tell you each table that I download. When you download a table, I'm going to give you an example of what it looks like with the script. Okay. But this is the actual script. This actually tells the pinball machine how to react when you're in Visual Pinball. That's what the script is used for. And there's numbers and things that they use to edit it. Now, I'm going to show you what the script looks like on a table that's actually done to give you an idea how complicated it gets. Okay. Let me go ahead and show you real quick what that looks like, and then I'll show you a few other features. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and open up a pinball that's already made so I can show you how complicated that script box can get. Okay. We're gonna go ahead and put the Addams family in here to show you how complicated it gets. Okay. Okay, now this is an example of a table that's already been laid out. Now you're going to notice on the table here, now keep in mind that you see all the templates? These are those templates I was telling you about. All the pictures that they used to put together, those are all templates that they have there. As you can see, like ramp shots and things up here, these are all the templates that they use. Then they have all the ramps and everything laid out as well. Now keep in mind, this all had to be fabricated. They had to use this program to make all these. Here's all your timer icons and things on the side as well. Okay? Then you're going to have flash lamps and things. Okay? Now this just gives you an idea of how complicated it looks. You remember how blank the playfield was in the beginning? Well, all this had to be programmed in. You know, they have lights and flashes. All these things here came from this section over here. So just keep in mind, everything on here was programmed in and put on from here. So as you can see, this gets very, very complicated. Now, as far as moving objects and things go, like when they have like gates and things that turn and things, I'm not exactly sure how they do that, but I can tell you that there is a way that they work them in, like the hand and things that grabs the ball, and the target bank that says greed that actually turns where the bookcase is. That's all programmed into this. Okay. Now, if you go to Backglass, you're going to see this. Now, you're going to see that on Backglass, this particular table doesn't have a backglass on it. I actually load backglasses separately, so you can actually create backglasses separately from the actual pinball table if you want to, and that's what a lot of people do. And there's also many videos and things that will tell you how to design backglasses as well. Okay. Now, here's an example of how complicated the script gets. For example, for the Addams family. Okay, let me pull this up on top so you can see this. Okay, here's an example how complicated it can get. Now you're going to see things. There's things like subloads. What they do when they make pinball tables is, if you remember, you can see all the numbers that are corresponding to the side here. These are all programmed commands that they have in the game. Now, I'll give you a good example. Addams Family has 1,000 at the bottom, 1,389 different things that are programmed into this script thing to make this table actually work. Now, I'm going to go to the top and show you how they kind of lay them out. Now, it's going to vary from table to table, but normally this is how one of the basic things I use when I use visual pinball. Now, normally you're going to have on the top of the visual pinball, you're going to have the table, like the Addams Family for VP9 by Mellon, okay? Then you're going to have the options that are going to be on top. Now, for example, like if you want to use what's called a B2 what's called a B2S server, which is what I use, that's going to be what's going to run your Backlash. You're going to see there's a thing here that says set controller, create object B2 server. You can actually learn how to do all these things if you go to the forums, how to set all these up. But as you can see, there's an awful lot of things that are involved here in setting these things up, and that's one of the reasons why I consider people that make these tables actually masters of their craft for being able to do all this, because it's very complicated. Now you're going to see things like if we go down, you're going to see various things. That's how you would want to set things. Like, do you want it to run with a backglass and things in the beginning? Now you're going to have things also down here that are going to have different things, such as like how you set the flipper speeds and various things, and all these different things here, as you can see here. Like, do you want to have the titles show? You know, do you want to have various things show? Do you want to have, how do you want to control the keyboard? That's the sort of thing that's all programmed into the script here. But as you can see, it gets very complicated. There's a lot to this, okay? Now, for example, you're going to have things like flipper subs. Okay? There's going to be things that are going to tell that when you program script in, what you're doing is you're essentially telling the pinball how to run based on what you have. And that's what basically all these different categories are for, as you can see. As you can see, there's a lot of things, such as kickers and things like that. There's a lot of things there that go with it. And if you keep going down, you can see that there's dozens and dozens of things in here that have to be programmed in to make everything work. So as you can see, this gets pretty complicated. For example, like how slingshots and bumpers work. That's what's going to be on the screen like this. And then you're going to go down here. Now, if you want to know how to actually program the script and everything, you can go to the VP forum site, and they'll actually teach you how to do scripting. There's an actual book you can get there that you can download. There's a tutorial that you can download for VP forums that actually will show you how to do scripting and things on these tables as well. Okay. All right, so let me go down to the bottom. Okay, and then at the bottom there's going to be things such as how ramps and everything works as well, and play fields, timers, triggers, and things. But as you can see, all this has to be programmed in. That's the reason why when you have a table, that it takes a long time to make some of these tables, because the scripting can take months and months of work to do, depending on the table that you're doing. Now, the one thing to keep in mind is that the tables also run on ROMs that come along with the table. So when you download the tables, you have to download the ROMs that go with them. The ROMs and everything work in conjunction with the scripts and everything as well. So as you can see, it gets pretty complicated on here as to how you make a table. Okay. Now let me go ahead and bring this back up, and we're going to go ahead and load in a. We're going to go back to the basic table. I want to show you one or two things. We're going to say new. Okay. All right, let me go ahead and exit out of this. Okay, let me bring the program back up, and I'm going to show you something else as well. Okay. Okay, now this is what I wanted to show you next. As you can see, when you have your table in place, there's a thing over here called options. If you look up on the top left, there's a thing called options. When you click options, this is going to be the sort of thing that you're going to use to do your editing for your table. Now, as you can see, you're going to have your things like, if we go down the right side, it's going to have the name of the table. It's going to have the color graphics and things that you want to use. All these things have to be set up when you make a table. Now, for example, when you click on ball, that's going to show you different physics and things you want to use for your ball, the type of ball you want to have. Do you want to have decals in the ball? Do you want to have it chromed? Different types of things that you want to have. Reflections, how much do you want it to reflect off the play field? That's going to be set right here under this option here. Okay, now if I go back to options, okay, that's going to be used for the ball. Now if we go back to options, you're going to have another option that's going to come up. Okay, let me bring that back up. Okay, now if we go down to dimensions and slope, okay, that's the next one. This is going to be things that are going to determine, for example, how high your glass is above your play field. The table length and the table width. These are going to be the parameters for determining all that over here. That's going to actually be what's going to be determined here. As you can see, all this gets programmed in. Now, when you have things like dimensions and when you have things like light sources, okay, click on that one. This is going to be different light sources and things that you're going to have. As you're going to see, you have a whole bunch of different things here as well that come up. But this is one of the things I want to show you. Now, let me show you on a more complicated pinball exactly what this looks like. We're going to go ahead and load the Addams family in again so I can show you how complicated this gets. Now, remember, you go to Open. Okay. We'll bring up the Addams family. Okay, now we're going to go to Options. Okay. Now, as you can see here, for example, they've assigned things like ball front, ball back, different things, options and things have been assigned. Slope and everything. See, all this is basically has been set according to how they want the table to work. And keep in mind, when you program different things in it, it makes the table work differently depending on what you're going to program. So sometimes you have to actually work with this to actually tweak it and things to make everything work together. Okay? Now, one of the other things I wanted to show you, we're going to go back to the top. Okay, I'm going to go back to New. Okay? Now, you're going to notice on top here, on top, you have different things on options on top. Like if you go to Edit, you have different things you can do as well. Files usually used if you want to open a table or you want to make a new table. That's what's going to be used under Options. And normally they'll have the last tables that you downloaded or that you worked on will actually be underneath here under File. So if you want to get a table in there, normally you can just click on a table, and you can actually bring that table right in from where you're at. Now, very important. When you do your tables, I suggest that if you're making a table, that you save about every 10 minutes, because if your computer goes out or you have a problem, everything that you've done will be lost if it's not saved. So my advice is go ahead and save about every 10 minutes when you're working on a table. That way you're sure you have everything saved. I have not heard anything bad about Visual Pinball not working, but I have heard of some people having some issues with it, having problems. So that's one of the reasons you want to save it as much as you can to avoid losing any of your work. Now, if you're going to notice things like if we go to Edit, you're going to have drawing order and other things too. This is things you can actually do to determine how you want your Visual Pinball setup to work when you're using it, as far as like your layout and things goes. Okay, now like when you have another thing for Insert. Okay, now you're going to notice that this allows you to insert things on the table using fast keys like plungers and things like that. Now, for example, you're going to notice that they have numbers and things that are assigned, like keys that go with like Control plus W for a wall, Control plus G for a gate, Control plus R for a ramp, Control plus H for a flasher, Control plus F for a flipper. This is if you want to use speed keys to make your tables, to put things on the table without having to use these over here. That's what these are. These are the speed keys. Okay. Yeah. Now, when you go to table, you're going to have things like collections managers, dimension managers, image managers, sound manager, table info. This is going to be various things you're going to use when you're setting up your tables that you have as well. Now, when you go to preferences, now this is going to be options you're going to have. You're going to have audio options, editor options, keys, security, video options, and physics options. You can actually change these physics options based on the table that you have if you want to make the table play differently. Video options are going to be what sort of resolution do you want to have your table playing at. So that's another thing to keep in mind. If you have layer, now this is going to be different layers. When you're doing editing, you can actually have different layers disabled to make it easier when you're going ahead and working with it, to make it easier to see on the play field as well when you're doing the editing on Visual Pinball. Now, windows are going to be, you're going to have various things that you're going to have, such as cascading and arranging icons. That's going to affect how you want your icons and things arranged over here. Now, if you go to Help, Help is going to tell you, if you go to Help about, that's actually going to tell you what version of Visual Pinball and things that you're using. Now, if you want to know where you can download Visual Pinball, you can download Visual Pinball. I downloaded mine. I actually went to the Visual Pinball website, and I actually downloaded the table from Visual Pinball from the actual website. Now, the one thing keep in mind, a very important note on these. When you make these tables and things too, keep in mind that it's going to take time for you to get started on tables. This is just something that's a labor of love. I have never gotten to the point where I've been able to create these tables. I just appreciate all the work that people put into them. Okay, but now one thing keep in mind, when you're downloading tables, I'm actually going to go to the Visual Pinball site to show you something, okay? So this is going to complete our basic tour of how Visual Pinball works. I want to show you something on the VP forums as well that's going to show you as well different types of tables and things. Okay, let me go and exit out of this. Okay. Now we're going to actually go to the Visual Pinball site, and I'm just going to show you a couple basic things about Visual Pinball when you want to download titles of your own. Okay, so let me exit out of our pinball. Okay, now what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to go to the actual VP Pinball site where I download the tables and things and the ROMs and everything that I have as well. Okay. Now, I'm not going to go into I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail on how you navigate through the site. It's pretty self-explanatory when you go to the site. I'm just going to give you some examples of where I download these tables that are used for Visual Pinball. Now, if you go to Visual Pinball, the titles that I use are full screen cabinets. Okay, so you would go to Visual Pinball, then you're going to go to full screen cabinet. Okay, Visual Pinball full screen cabinet. Now what's going to happen is you're going to notice these are all the Visual Pinball titles, okay, that run under Visual Pinball 9. Now depending on the version that you're working with, you may download different titles. I basically find that on my table, I use VP9 tables. So VP9 tables work, but if you go to full screen cabinet, which is what I'm using, it's going to bring this list up right here. Now what's going to happen is these are all the Visual Pinball tables that people have made on Visual Pinball. When you want to download one of the tables, all you would do is you would click on the table that you want to download. Now let me go to you don't want spam. We want Visual Pinball full screen. Okay. Okay, now we're in Visual Pinball full screen. Now these are all the titles that people have made. Now for example, like the Addams Family. Okay. That would be found under one of these categories here. As you can see, they're in here as well, like Action Hero, various things that they have. Now, just to give an example of one that we can download, we'll go ahead and we'll download. Let's try to download. We'll try to download Fishtails just to show you what it looks like. Okay. Actually, we're going to do F14 Tomcat. That'll make it easier. So what you're going to do is you're going to find that when you go to the screen. Now this is what works with Visual Pinball. Here's F14 Tomcat VP9 for the forums. When you click on this, it's going to access the page, and then it's going to show you what the table looks like. Now this is what you would want to use when you load this table in. You can find out what the screen actually looks like using the table, using using your computer. Now, what's going to happen is when you download a table, it's going to download it into a download folder. You're going to take that download folder, and that's what you're going to use, and you're going to put it under the tables folder under your Visual Pinball. So if I was to download this, I would say download. That will load it into my tables, into my downloads folder. You hit download, it goes in your download folder. Now, I'm just going to do this to show you an example of how this would work. Okay. All right. I went I was going to download it. Now it's going to download the title. It's going to download the title into my downloads folder. Okay. All right. Let me go ahead and exit out of these. Okay. Now what you're going to want to do to actually open this folder, you need to have a program. I use JZip to open them. The actual Visual Pinball folder to play the game is inside here. So I suggest using JZip. I find it works very well. You're going to say Open Archive, and then you're going to actually open the folder that you just downloaded, and you're going to say Extract. Okay. Now what you're going to have is, I'm going to delete the original folder. This folder right here, where it says VPT, if you remember I showed you all those tables, this is an actual table. So what I would do is I would take this table here, I would copy this table here, and then on your desktop you're going to have a thing called Visual Pinball, which is on top here. What I would do is I would actually, now I'm not going to download this into the folder because I already have one in there, but you would take this, you would copy this folder here, and then you would go to Visual Pinball. And under Visual Pinball, there's a little section in here that says Tables. These are all the tables that I have, and then this is where I would download the folder, in the tables. So when I go to Visual Pinball and I open up a table, these are the actual tables that Visual Pinball uses to open it. Now you're going to notice I have a thing on here also called Direct 2BS File. That's used if you want to use direct backglasses and things with your tables as well. Okay, the main focus on this video is we're just focusing on how Visual Pinball would work. But what you would do is you would load it into this folder here. Or you would just download the table name into the folder here that you just got, and then you would go to your Visual Pinball. Then you would go to your Visual Pinball. Then you would say Open. And then the title that you downloaded, that you pasted in there would be right here. Now keep in mind, if you're using a commercial pinball machine or something like that, that has ROM images, you would have to go to the VP site and download the ROM images as well to go with the pinball machine. The pinball will not run, if it's one of the newer pinball machines and it has ROMs, for example, F14, the pinball machine will not run without the ROMs if you're using the Visual Pinball. It has to have the ROMs. Now the ROMs to actually run the Visual Pinball, I'm just going to show you a breakdown of what the folders inside Visual Pinball look like so you get an idea as well. Okay, now if you go to the actual Visual Pinball folder itself, you're going to notice that there's a bunch of things here that run Visual Pinball. Okay, now if you go to the thing called VP MAME, to learn how VP MAME and everything works, there's a lot of forums and things that will tell you how that works. Under VP MAME, once you get everything loaded, there's a folder in here called ROMs. These are where all the ROM images and everything are controlled that control the games. These are the ROM images that go along with the games. So you want to so before you can actually play it on Visual Pinball, you would have to load the ROMs. You would have to load the ROMs for the pinball game into this folder here, and that's what would allow you to run the table. Okay. Now once you have all that in, I'm going to show you exactly what that would look like when you run it. Okay. All right. Now what's going to happen is, for example, if I open up a table. All right, we'll say the Addams Family. Okay. Now I have everything inside here. Now what I want to say, when you're ready, when you finish your table and you want to play, then you're going to want to go and you're going to want to push play. Now let me show you what it's going to look like when you first start out. If you just have a small table, what it's going to do is it's going to produce an image that looks like this. Now keep in mind the orientation of things is going to vary. I'm mainly using this just for display purposes. But this is what you're going to basically have. You're going to have a thing that looks like this. Your flippers and everything are going to be controlled from here. Then you're going to be able to launch the ball. Okay? This is basically what it looks like when you start. So you got the basic ball physics and everything there. Now let me show you what it looks like when you have a more complicated table. Okay? Now once you play that and you like it, then you can go ahead and you can just exit. You can exit out. Okay, and then you can go back. So that's basically what it looks like when you start. Now, a more complicated table, like the Addams Family, you download it in Visual Pinball. Now, remember also, very important, whenever you exit out, before you exit, make sure you save the work that you're currently working on. Remember, I recommend doing it about every 10 minutes when you're building one. That way, if something goes wrong with Visual Pinball, you don't lose all your work. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and play the Addams Family for our next example. Now you're going to see this is quite a bit more complicated. Now it's going to load it into the table. Okay. All right, now give me 1 second. There's a setting on here I have to fix. Give me 1 second. Okay, now this is going to be the Addams Family. Okay, let me load it in one more time. Okay, now this is the Addams Family. Okay, Now what you're going to want to do is, you can, using your keyboard, you can actually control the different functions. Now you're going to see, like when I want to load it in, you're going to see it actually has a backglass that works along with it. Now keep in mind, the play field that you see here was designed in Visual Pinball. The backglass also was designed in Visual Pinball, and they work together. You can design backglasses independent from the playfields, or playfields independent from the backglasses. But just keep in mind, all this stuff here that you're seeing in front of you all had to be laid out on that Visual Pinball template that I showed you. So you can see it's a pretty complicated process. Okay? Now if you want to play again, then it would be just like I showed you before. Okay? Then you would have your table, and then you have everything working together. Okay? And then when you want to exit out, you would just hit escape, and then that would allow you to go back to the basic screen, as you can see here. Okay, now we're back to the basic screen. So as you can see, now this gives you a little bit more of an idea about how the actual visual Pinball works. And this is just a basic tour that shows you how you go about using Visual Pinball to create titles. And remember, you can go online to learn about how to learn about loading ROMs and everything. I basically took me about 2 years to get to the point where I was really comfortable working with Visual Pinball, and I got to the point where I could create a table. Now you're going to also find that depending on how complicated your computer is, on how your graphics cards are set up, your speed of your processor, the Windows version that you're using, there's different versions of Visual Pinball that may work better for you depending on the computer that you have. So just keep that in mind too. I'm mainly focusing on this Visual Pinball version that I have on mine, but there are other versions as well. Okay, so now you get a little bit better idea about how the actual Visual Pinball program works as well. I want to thank you, by the way, for tuning into the Curse Place channel here on the YouTube. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and leave those in the comments section down below. If you want to go and click that subscribe button, feel free to do so. That way you can keep up with all my current videos. And if you like what you see, go ahead and click that like button as well. And as always, I want to thank you again for tuning into the Curse Place channel here on YouTube. Have a great day now. Bye-bye now.